This is Bharat FM.
बजेगा भारत झूमेगा भारत.
ये है भारत FM.
बजेगा भारत झूमेगा भारत. Good morning, good evening, namaste, namaskar, vanakkam and welcome to Bharat FM. You're watching Connect for a Cause with me, Preeti Balaji. So, audience, we have been doing a series of interviews with the advisory board of Eyes Open International, and today yet we are in another episode with one of the advisory board members of Eyes Open International. We have Mr. Ivan Fernandes, Promoter and Managing Director of Regent Technologies Limited. It's a well-known name in BFSI for the past 3 decades, and he created branch automation in the 90s, internet and mobile banking in the early 2000s, and implemented the solutions in over 60 banks in Middle East, India, Far East, and Europe. And he is also one of the advisory board members of Eyes Open International. I'm so happy and excited to have Mr. Ivan Fernandes in our show today, and we're going to talk so much about him and bring out the best out of him. Here you go, people. Hello, Mr. Ivan.
Hi, Preeti. Nice to be connected, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to the audience, irrespective of where in the world you're connecting from. Thanks, for taking time.
Thank you so much for being on our show today. So, Mr. Ivan, I just have to name you as a serial entrepreneur, investor, mentor, coach. You have multiple roles to play, and you have become a successful icon in your industry. So I would like to start a show with you telling your story about like how you reached this place. A short snippet of like your background.
Yeah. If you look at my upbringing as a child, I come from a fairly poor family, I can say. My parents were fairly uneducated. My father was a driver. So the environment wasn't very conducive to learning or, dreaming big during those times. But I think what was nurtured within us by our parents was that we should not be dependent on anything, whether it's neighbors, whether it's a family, or for that matter, even on the government. One of the things that I've seen is these days, a lot of people who are poor, they want to be fully dependent and they want to remain dependent. You could be dependent for a certain time until you take the next step, but remaining dependent forever will never help you elevate. Thankfully, our parents said, be independent. Try to think out of the box. Do something different. And this from parents who are uneducated, I thought was great. Okay, and that's why my parents did not know what I studied. My father never came to any of the schools that I went through. Even my mother, if she comes once in a blue moon, the teachers would always tell her, why you are coming? There's no complaint about your child. Don't bother coming, that sort of thing. So I had a free ride all the way through until I started thinking. Until about 10th, I was good in studies, no doubt about it. But I was not too serious about a career. Where education was important, because we used to, it was a balance between work at home plus studies, because we had to do a lot of, support to our parents to get our livelihood.
That's true.
Every meal counted at that time. And at the end of the day, it was just a balance that we were taking off. Plus, I was good in volleyball. I was giving a little bit of time whenever I get time to go and play in my church. I was in the school team, and so these were taking the time. And plus, I was in NCC, which learned to give me a lot of discipline as I grow. To be frank, I'm very happy that I took that decision. And so I used to go for mountaineering, gliding, and all these other adventurous sports, which I, as an individual coming from that family, wouldn't have been able to do at all. So, but when I went to the 10th standard, that's the first time I said, what is my future? Parents wouldn't guide me on that. And I started thinking that I need to build my own future because nobody else would do it for me.
That's true.
And that
Yes.
is where I started concentrating on studies in the 11th standard. And so the next 2 years defined my career because, especially if you're a science student in India today, and when we were young too, the 12th standard defined what you could
What
do.
good.
And those were not the days when you had multiple careers like the children have today. You if you wanted to go to professional studies, it was only two: either you become a doctor or you
Or
become
an
an engineer.
engineer.
Unfortunately, doctor was out of my question because
Okay.
I was not meant to, check my own pressure or forget others. But I was very good in maths and science,
Okay.
and I, even in school, I used to tutor my other friends. One of
Oh,
the
okay.
in school, I had although I come from a poor family, my friends were from very rich families, but they were friends with me only because they couldn't understand maths, what the teachers taught in school. But if they sat with me for 10-15 minutes, they would be able to understand everything.
You have a good teacher mentor by that time itself,
Exactly.
I think.
And that told me that I should utilize that as a one, and that is where I thought engineering is a better thing for me.
Okay.
But in second pre-university, which is what is the 12th standard or 12th grade in India, when I asked my father about it for the first time, I took a lot of courage to even tell him that I have aspiration to be engineer. And by that time, he fortunately had just gone to the Gulf as a driver, and I
Okay.
wrote him a letter. He wrote me a big 2-3 pages back saying that forget all this. This is not for people like us. This is for ministers' sons and rich people.
That's
You, as soon as you are 18, you get your heavy driving license. Come to the Gulf. I'll try to get you a visa, and we continue this one. So forget, don't do this one. So I did not take that as a rejection. To be frank, I took it as a
okay.
positive thing because that's all you could expect. But I
That's
started earning, doing my own little bit earning, and I started keeping it. And I went for all the competitive exams. Fortunately, I got a government seat, and I
okay.
managed my engineering as one with very little dependence on my parents.
That's awesome.
And to be fair, the 4 years of engineering transformed me to be one of the best guys overall, not just in studies, but I was also in the college union. I was a college volleyball captain, and I was a leader. I came out of engineering not as a poor student who went there struggling, but somebody full of confidence to conquer this world.
Awesome, sir.
Yeah.
Like you had this potential of being an entrepreneur from that small age. I could see from whatever you're talking, right? You had your goal set, like, okay, I have to achieve something big rather than like discussing what I don't have.
That's
So
correct.
turning
Yeah,
all those obstacles in the way and making that as opportunity and like going forward. That's what I think you are like reaching everyone right now too.
that's true. Because when I was in college, I had always aspired to be an entrepreneur. Although the ecosystem for entrepreneurship did not exist then.
Yeah, but I
And
was just wondering, like, how at that time, like, you got this information because that time it was always like either you get a government job, settle down, and then have your own stable income and all those stuff. How did you really like went into this?
absolutely correct, Pradeep. See, the thing is, today engineering students, when they are in the final year, they get campus interviews. We had
Yes.
no campus interviews.
Yeah.
The only thing we could apply was defense when in the third year.
Okay.
And you wouldn't believe, I applied for Air Force and I got selected in the third year for
Oh.
Indian Air Force. So that was it was considered great at that point of time. And even I
Yes.
thought I would be in the Air Force. That's how I started thinking when I came into the final year. I said,
Mm-hmm.
at least in my entire class, I was the only guy who had a job. Nobody
Mm,
else
that's a big
had a
clap for you. That.
yeah. But somehow it's what I said, if I go into the Air Force, I'll serve the country, which is great. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But can I do something where I can provide opportunities for others also
Yes.
to be one? And that's where there's one. And some, through my project in the final year, I came to know of at that time, today it is very common called cable television. That time,
Yes. I also wanted to ask that. Yeah.
yeah, the televisions were on microwave, and they were only limited to like 5 kilometers from my microwave stations. So
Yeah.
very few houses could afford television connectivity.
Yes.
Since I had done my one specialization at that time on my optional subjects with the communications, I thought that was great. Although satellite television wasn't very great in terms of content, but in terms of infrastructure, was still possible because Russia had some satellites which were available in India. Indian satellites did not exist at that time. ISRO wasn't so advanced in launching satellites, for the entertainment purpose. That they had a few ones for just for space management.
Yes.
And I managed to convince one of the rich families that used to sell TVs in Mangalore, which is the place I come from. And they got convinced that they brought 20 rich people to pool in money. And we put this with the dish antenna for the first time on a mountain top, pulled the cable through all the trees, and got a minister to come and inaugurate it. It was big news.
You had an on-site project at the end of engineering, I think.
Exactly. And I was so thrilled. Very little did I realize that that's a one momentary, point of reputation, because replication of that, you were not required.
Oh, okay.
Because once I came to know how the technology works, what components are required, and how to, so then they had the money power to scale it.
Correct.
That is when it hit me and said, ideas alone don't make an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
It's the entire ecosystem that needs to be built. And then that is the time I started applying for jobs. And I was again fortunate that I got into an institution like Baba Atomic Research Center, one of the best institutions in India. And I joined there as a scientific officer. And I started my career there. But again, people who join there, they believe that that's the career that they will retire when they're 65 in that one, because it's one of the best research institutions in India, and you are taken care of everything. Your residence is inside, your schools are inside, your hospitals are inside, your buses come to your door to pick you up. The quality of life for somebody in Bombay is so good there, you will never take
stable life, who always wanted, everybody dreams for that life, right?
Absolutely correct. So that is what life was. But unfortunately for me, I always expect we do better. So even in BRC, I used to work on weekends. I used to at that time I used to go and sit in the supercomputer room and build algorithms and things like that. Okay. And my seniors at that time sometimes used to jokingly tell me, Ivan, you are new, and that is why you are working like mad. After 2 years, you will know that you will not be promoted and this and that, and then you will come like us, and you will also be dejected and things like that. Somehow in my heart, I thought this is the best opportunity for me to learn. I don't care about tomorrow, because if I have the knowledge, I can define tomorrow. If I don't have the knowledge, what can I do? And where will I get this golden opportunity?
That's true. So, this attitude, people should have, I think. Yeah.
Exactly. And to be frank, 2 years later, I just got an opportunity to challenge what I learned in BRC. And without a second thought, I just decided to quit a classic, gadgeted officer designation, big institution job, just to come to the Gulf and take that challenge and build signature verification for banks.
Yeah, that's what, I wonder, being an engineer, working in the scientific department, how did you enter into this BFSI industry? How this happened, and I mean, how did you grow in that industry as such?
I must say it was by choice. I used to write algorithms and design hardware in BRC to detect flaws in nuclear fuel rods in a live reactor. That's the project that I was in this one. And so I used to basically write improving of images so that we can detect flaws very early. Yeah. One day in one of the Indian newspapers, I read an article which said that banks have a need for verifying signatures electronically. Today is common. I'm talking about 87, 88. And but there is no technology available to make it happen. So it's very complicated for customers. When you go in, they give you, if you go in India, they should give you a token. You sit down. Then somebody will go inside the branch and check in the big register where is your signature, whether it is correct, then to tally it. If you go to another branch, they have to fax your check to the home branch, and then they have to verify it. It was as complicated as that. And when I looked at it, I said, no, this can be simplified. So I contacted the editor of that article. He put me in touch with this company which originally said about this. And I got in touch with this Bahrain base. And in 15 minutes talk with them, they said, if you take the challenge and come and do this for us, we will give you some royalty.
Okay.
I did not know much about royalty
Royalty.
or which company it was, what is the background, how big, how small, nothing. I just thought about it overnight. Next morning, I came to my boss and said, I want to take a different challenge. I want to quit my job. He said, are you mad? I said, no, I think I can do something so in the banking area for verifying signatures and this and that. And in 2 months later, I was in Bahrain joining this company. And then I found this is a very young startup company, where, sometimes you don't even get salaries on time because they were a startup.
It's starting up, yeah.
I believed that I could go and do this and change that company. And that's where I got in. And that's what got me entry into banks. This product itself, although it's not my product, I worked there and I got a small royalty. But this product ultimately made entry into 1,000 banks around the world.
Yeah.
Okay.
And now we have mobile apps banking apps in our mobile now to do a transaction as much as easy as you started with that. Like, how is that thing?
No, that was my actually second startup because I worked based on my when I went to implement banking for a second bank in Riyadh. That bank, the chairman is Prince Walid bin Talal. He is the largest Citibank shareholder. And I found they had much more challenges, and because of which our software could not be put in.
Okay.
So although I'm a vendor, I ended up solving their problems.
You're always there for solutions, I think.
Exactly. And which is normally a vendor wouldn't do normally because why should I solve somebody else? But for me, the problem was if that problem was not solved, my software wouldn't run.
Oh, okay.
And the end result is for a startup company like us, which was the second customer, we would lose $240,000.
Okay. The entrepreneur came into picture then there.
Exactly. So in the interest of protecting our own interest, I saw somebody else's interest.
Yes,
that went up to the chairman, and ultimately they ended up hiring me, for helping them with technology, and worked with that bank and became the very senior manager in less than 5 years. But my passion always was to become an entrepreneur. So the moment I was on the top there, I said, no, I want to go back now to India because now I have enough resources. I have the knowledge. I know how the industry works. And then I found a niche in banking, which was a huge requirement. That's where in 95, I came back to Bangalore when Bangalore was in the initial stages of setting up. It is not the Silicon Valley that it is today. And set up my first company. Built up the front-end banking system, brought PCs into banking, where prior to that was all mainframes, built the complete workflow, and started challenging the big wigs such as IBM, NCR, Midas Capiti, Logica, and within 3 years, we became a target of acquisition because we are going too fast and becoming this one. So in 1998, Logica, a UK company, ended up acquiring us, and that's where my first acquisition. Nothing was planned. Our plan was only to solve a problem.
Yeah.
But that problem probably became too enormous for our competitors to really, let go, because otherwise we probably would have ended up making everything ourselves. And so we got S1, and that was my first exit. My second one, obviously, is what you said. When 96, 97 in India, the mobile phones had just come. In the world over, there was not much difference in the mobile area. But at that time, people were looking at mobile as only one of wireless devices to talk.
Yeah.
I thought that could be the best device for data. And I said banks could securely use it for authentication and fraud elimination, and getting alerts and things like that. And this is in 98. And I wrote a business for mobile payments and banking then, which I put into action in 2000 with my second startup called Ducon. And this was mobile banking and mobile payment. This was set up in Dubai.
Okay.
And, this went on to acquire 60 odd banks, as you said, for mobile banking and apps. The entire 114 government departments in Dubai, a lot of departments in Abu Dhabi, Qatar, Saudi Aramco, and this company too in 2010, a public sector company in India came and acquired us.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's just aspiring to solve a major problem using the efficiencies that you have and with the team that you can collaborate with, and then get it to the market and say this is defenseless. We can make it happen. We don't need a big company or a brand behind us.
The brand, yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Space if we make it happen, nobody else can make it.
Yeah, that's like, it looks like a revolution to me. Like when you're talking all these things, it's like how this happened, and so aspiring to hear from you as such as a real story, right? Like not in every day you open up and see someone like talking about this as in a real time. So aspiring actually. So you have been like throughout, you have lot of ideas, and you have started implementing those ideas. So do you have someone like a role model or someone like whom you look up to, or like how is that has been in your life?
Yeah. See, the thing is, if you ask me, there isn't a specific role model that I look as a guru for this one, but
Mm-hmm.
there have been certain key members that I've come across,
Yeah.
at least two that I always refer to. One was my assistant headmaster in high school. His name is
Okay.
unfortunately no longer there. Is for the Ambrose Pinto. He died a few years back. He had a very specific anxiety that he wanted to see the students in their homes. Okay. Although I said I come from a poor family, but in school, I was a
Exactly.
class leader and I used to be in sports. So, and my friends, I said, were rich
Yeah.
kids who, in return for a sugarcane juice or a bel puri, would get tutoring from me and so forth. So, it was very difficult for anybody to understand our family background. But he once, when I was in 8th standard, he came home and he saw me playing. I was just playing with the ball in the garden outside.
Yeah, yeah.
And he said, Ivan, I want to come home. So I said, come, father, come inside. He said, where is your house? I said, this is my house. He said, what?
Yeah.
Yours house? Because at that time, our house was, today we call 3-bedroom, 4. We had no bedroom. It was one room.
Yeah.
So I told him, he said, I told my mother, this is my assistant headmaster. So we gave him tea. He did not speak much. Maybe he could not absorb what he was saying.
Absorb that. Yeah.
Okay. And then he said, you're going and this and that. He went. Next day, when I was entering the school, he is standing at the entrance.
Uh-huh.
And as soon as I came in, he said, Ivan, I want to speak to you.
Okay.
Okay, I thought, I don't know what wrong I have done now.
As a student, you must be having that thought.
Exactly, because, you see, when a headmaster or a assistant headmaster
Correct.
pulls you, it's something you have done wrong. This is a natural notion. So he went inside and said, the first question he asked me, which was the first time it startled me and also made me, get tears in my eyes, because I'm very strong in my notions. I hardly, weep or anything like that, whatever the challenges are. What he said, Ivan, tell me the truth. How are you paying the fees?
Okay. He wants to know now.
Exactly. Because he could conceive that based on the situation that he had seen, there's no way this guy is, able to pay.
Able to pay.
And then I had to tell him the actual story of how we make a living at home and how sometimes I have to work outside and get some money and all this thing. And then he told me, from tomorrow until I am there in the school, you're not going to pay any fees.
Okay.
That was the first time I said that when people understand reality, they will synchronize with you and they will try to make your life better. So that is why today, if I look at it, most of the students that I support a lot of students.
Yes.
Because I believe that these students who cannot afford education because of their parents should not lose the value of education just because the parents cannot afford, because these could be the stars of tomorrow, if that is correct. And that is why if somebody comes with their support, I always try to see how I can support him within my means. And that to me, he was one of my fun. The second one, obviously, I said, I worked with Prince Walid bin Talal for about close to 6 years. And he comes from a royal family. Okay. Typically, people think that royal family people don't have to work. They have enough money. They control the country and things like that. This man would be in the bank at 8 o'clock in the morning. On the dot, I have, in the 5.5 years that I've seen him, I've not seen him one day where he was not there at the time of 8 o'clock when clock would chime. I have not seen him complaining, saying that, he has to go there, he slept late, he had a party, nothing.
Okay.
And at the stroke of one, irrespective of how serious the discussion was, he would just close and he would just go off. So the time management was so superb about it that I learned that that's very essential to be successful.
True.
The other thing that I found in him was on the basis of decision making. We used to do all this acquisition. At the time, I myself have been involved in Saks Fifth Avenue. Citibank had just finished before we had gone in, but then a lot of businesses in Saudi Arabia and things like that. And we would then do, I used to do the technical diligence, there was the business side, finance side. So we would all put a report and give it to him. He would never take it at face value.
Okay.
You would look at it, ask us questions, but then you would decide based on what he thinks it should be.
Okay.
I'll give a very specific example. In the international, when Disney Europe investment came into us, all of us found that it's not worth it.
Okay.
He still went and invested in Disney Europe, and it struggled for quite some time. But he said that that's his decision. He would not blame somebody for it. So any decision, good or bad, is his decision. You would not say, "I did it because you recommended it to me."
Okay.
And that's something that, as an entrepreneur, I learned from him, that you take responsibilities of everything that happens within your organization. Don't blame your team, saying that because I did not have a good team, because I did not, they did not advise me correctly, that I failed or I could not do. Ultimately, the buck stops with you, and you take that responsibility. So these two guys, I always remember, both from my, growing up career as well as from my professional career.
Okay, awesome. So tell us about your family. Like, I mean, like hearing about your mom, about your father so much, like you talked about him. So about your family as well as your children and all those stuff. Can you just discuss?
Yeah. My family, obviously, I said my parents were not educated. My mom, during those days, obviously, she could read a little bit of Kannada. She had gone some third grade or fourth grade or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, but not beyond that. So she couldn't grasp, but she was very passionate about what she did. She did not know how to bring, get the children focused on something or what they would become. But she somehow had one that her children should do well. They should study. And for that, she was ready to sacrifice everything. She would do all the type of labor that she could. That when she had to bring cows and milk them and sell the milk. She would water coconut trees, take the coconuts, sell them. In summer, take mangoes, jackfruit, sell them. Whatever work. There were
possible ways to support you.
Nobody. She never think this is not for me, or I'm a woman, or she would. We used to tie flowers and sell in the market every day, garlands. So these were all giving very little money. Every day probably 5 rupees, 10 rupees, but cumulatively she could make something to make ends meet.
Yeah.
And that was a great thing. And because of that, we took inspiration. I was the eldest, and I'm the only boy, and I've got 3 sisters. Not only did I inspired my sisters also to follow the same principle. And today, fortunately, I call in the family that I'm the least educated, although I'm an engineer. I call myself least educated because all my other sisters, one is a principal of a school in Mangalore. The second one is a doctor in Chicago. And the third one right now works for an IT company, and she's in Texas. So anybody, if you aspire, if you really think that there is no limit to what you can dream and achieve, it doesn't matter how you come from. And when you are at the bottom, it's easier because you cannot sink further. You are already at the floor, so you can always try to fly.
That's a nice point.
When you are at the top and then you fall down, sometimes it's very difficult for you to get up.
Yeah. So your children, what they do?
Yeah, my children. I've got 2 sons. My eldest son did all his schooling until grade. Obviously, he went to a European curriculum. It's called A levels. So he did his 13th grade here, and then went to the United States and graduated there. And currently works for a healthcare organization as a data analyst.
Okay.
The younger son was, a more extrovert. So he's more of an athlete. So he went to the United States first time because he won an under 18 tournament here in the UAE and got to represent UAE in the World
UAE.
Cup in I think 2005, if I'm correct. And when he went there, he found that the others were better than him there. And so he checked with them, and they found that they were all in some sports academies. So he asked me what those academies are. So I did not know much more than him, and so we decided to visit a few. And the end result was he said, I have to stay here. So he moved to the United States at the age of 10.
I can't imagine when you say that.
Exactly. Studied there as an in a sports academy. Went to college as an NCAA athlete with scholarship. And graduated 2 years back and is now you're playing on the professional circuit.
Awesome. It's that like since your dad was like supporting what you wanted to do, your dad and mom, like they supported like your wish, your passion. Is that what you follow for your children too? Like, is that it came?
Yes, because within the family and friends, we sometimes have a question. They ask them, even my wife is an engineer.
Yeah.
Okay. So they say, you both are engineers, but why have you not convinced your children to become engineers? And I tell them very clearly, we became engineers because we wanted to be engineers, not because our parents wanted us to be engineers. Okay?
True.
So my children, they have ambitions, and they are in a time frame where there are thousands of opportunities in the world. So, if they want to be the best athlete, let them be. If they want to be, the best musicians, let them be, But I want them to dream what they want to be. And my job is to support their objectives and make it happen, rather than them telling, I became this just because my father wanted me to be that. And they will regret it for the rest of their lives. I've seen multiple examples, just within my family and my friends, where children always say, I became this because you told me to become. And that's one thing that I did not want in my children, because it's not what you become. Are you happy with what you are? If you're not happy, it's absolutely useless, irrespective of the education and all the commitment that is given to you by your parents.
That's true. And I think many people who are watching this like will know what you're talking about, and parents should really like listen to this, I think. And more than like...
Especially the Indian parents.
Yeah, of course, yes.
Yeah, because I always tell Indian parents that they learn more with their children than what they had learned themselves in school.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I tell them, that's not good. When your children learn, you encourage them to learn, but don't force them to learn something because you like it, or you have seen somebody else in the family be successful because of that. So don't try to, think that your child should be the same as someone else. That's not, your child could have unique talent. Find that out and help him grow that talent. He could be the best of best, and others may then want to replicate him. Look at it from that perspective.
Awesome. Insightful words to the parents and the children. Like when children also, when they stand for their point, they should make sure that like they're achieving something at the end of the day, right? Like, I mean, they work towards it and they put their passion and their effort so that they reach that point.
No, it's a very common thing. Even within our family itself, I had one case where he ended up becoming an engineer. But every time I talk to him, he tells me, Uncle, I only became an engineer because my mom and dad wanted. I have no interest. I want to be in sales. I want to be in marketing. I don't want to be in programming and this and that, And then, it became a stressful thing until one day I told him, Baba, quit your job. Okay, go do your MBA in marketing. So you have specialization there. And then you start your career all over again. Doesn't matter what it happens. It's very difficult. Somehow in India, they think that, you have to graduate at this age. Otherwise, you have lost everything in life. Nothing happens. Doesn't matter. I like the US way. They take 2-year break before getting into college. They take break between studies. And they continue studies for the rest of their life.
True.
So there is nothing wrong, whether you are a graduate at 21 or 25, as long as you are mature enough and, you're content with what you have learned and you're ready to face the world.
True. We should learn the skill rather than like treating it just as a book thing or something. We should learn something from that, like what we are graduating or for what we are studying.
Exactly. Because, studying is not what is in the books. That's only for the exams.
Yeah.
Studying is building yourself to face the world. and that's not in the books.
Yes. And that thought, I think it should be like from the starting for the children, because even I myself like learned it after facing the world, like what I've learned. I mean, until then you don't know like what really is required, right? So it should start from
Right.
the beginning, I think, like from the
Right.
school and college days.
This is the other thing where I normally, when I get a chance to talk to parents, I tell them a lot of parents are very protective of the children leaving home.
Yeah.
They don't know. They say, how will he handle? What will
Yeah.
he do? How will he manage himself? And I say, the more you hold on to a child, the more you're going to spoil him, and he is not going to be somebody whom you can depend on tomorrow.
True.
The moment he goes out of your home, he will know what the real world is, and he will adjust and acclimatize, and he will know how to face it and take it forward.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
True
So,
words, like, yeah.
and I can give hundreds of examples of children once they've left home, how beautiful and brilliant they have become.
Yeah, definitely, yes. So yeah, we have talked so much about your family, your insightful words on parenting. Which is very important. From getting it from a person like you, it's very important actually. So, being an entrepreneur, like you have been a part of the TIE, the global nonprofit network of entrepreneurs and professionals. So, tell us about your role there and like what exactly it is and what it is doing for the upcoming entrepreneurs.
Yeah, TIE basically was set up by Indian entrepreneurs that went in the 70s and 80s to the Silicon Valley, and they made the initial success in the valley. The Silicon Valley is known for Indians,
Yes.
correct? Yeah, and these guys, they wanted to set up the ecosystem, and in '92 they created TIE. When I came to know, along with my friends, we wanted to create TIE in this part because we thought that was the right one of improving the ecosystem. So I'm one of the founders of TIE in Dubai. I was the second president of TIE, and now I'm currently the director of mentoring. So I basically interact with all the startups in the region and provide them with the required support in the early stages of their startup career. So currently about 60 odd startups in the region. I have the pleasure and enjoyment of interacting with them and seeing what the challenges are, trying to see how we can sort them out, so that a few of them probably in a few years could become the next Apples and Microsoft for the world.
Awesome, sir. So how this pandemic has
even today, just before, in fact, the final lesson I disconnected, we had an interaction with Baiju Ravindran, who obviously is an entrepreneur and has created probably the world's largest edtech company. And we put in a lot of our young people from the universities and colleges and had an online session with him just to learn from his experiences. So these guys could derive something from it.
Okay. That sounds good, actually. So, how this pandemic has treated you as such, as well as the ecosystem around you? Like, for example, the entrepreneurs, like how exactly it is affected and what has gone through?
Yeah, the pandemic has given us an opportunity to rethink about ourselves. Like even for me personally, I used to spend 50% of my time every month on travel. I used to go to India, during this period, I would have been in the United States. In the summer, I used to spend with my children. I used to visit my mom is in Chicago, so I would visit her, but last 2 years, nothing is possible.
True.
But it has also given us hope of looking at the world with a total different perspective. Like some of my product companies, are for edtech industry and they're for the school. The schools don't operate for the last 2 years, or at least not consistently. Most of the time it's all online. So we re-looked at it and we said how we can redefine the products for the next world. How can we do it beyond COVID? How can we ensure that when it comes back, it will be a mix of online and offline? How can that content be blended? How can the technology be provided to such an environment? And most of the schools that we work in the tech sector are the lower end of the pyramid. These are children who cannot even access internet in a lot of places.
Correct.
How do we make them come up and give the same challenges as somebody who is privileged enough in the internet world? So we do a lot of these things and brainstorming and providing it, and then talking to the schools, talking to the students, convincing those parents, and making it happen. And so every day is different, as far as I'm concerned. And although the only good thing is, yes, from a physical perspective, I don't have to travel, but from a mental perspective, the day has become longer. So,
Okay.
the number of meetings, the number of challenges, the amount of productivity that has come in during the pandemic period probably wasn't coming earlier, because then you had to take time for travel, you're in a flight,
Yeah.
you're in a hotel, you lose sleep, you get tired, you get stressed. None of that comes into the picture. So it's basically you are in one place, but then it gives you, your day is long enough to make things much better and more productive.
Okay, so I like, it's good to see that like everyone is taking this pandemic in a positive way, like where it's possible. Like, I mean, we do have obstacles, we do have challenges, but then like turning them into like what we can do about it. That's what makes, I think, people like you different. I think, yeah.
Any entrepreneur should look at an obstacle as an opportunity.
True words.
If not, he's not an entrepreneur.
Okay, getting it. Yes. So you have a big things on your plate. Like you are running like a 24/7. You're running, and you have so many things on your plate. How did you meet Harold D'Souza for Eyes Open International?
Very, very good question. I did not know Harold until maybe 2 years back. A friend of his in Mangalore, who is a professor of one of the colleges where I provide mentoring support.
Yeah.
So he suddenly called me and gave me some information about him, and he said that he's coming to Dubai and you are able to meet him, and he wants to let that part of the world understand what he has gone through and what challenges in trafficking are still existing in the world, and all this stuff. And it was like 24-hour notice.
Okay.
So generally, you want to create an event, you need time, correct?
Yeah.
But Harold's his one itinerary was already scheduled.
Okay.
So, but because of the network that I have of promoting entrepreneurs, I managed to get 100 odd people, and then we had him along with the Trade Council of the US consulate here in Dubai come and address and talk about it. That's how I got introduced to Harold and Dancy. And then after that, I found that his objectives are to promote others so that they don't get those challenges, and I thought that that's a very good initiative, because we are in the 21st century.
Yeah.
And how can you think of somebody being a slave of anybody else in this century? It cannot happen, correct? So, I totally subscribe to this one, that human beings, your freedom of life, your freedom of speech is very, very important. And if such things, those basic fundamental things are curtailed, then we cannot say we are in an advanced world.
Yeah. That mere existence itself is being like compensated.
Exactly. So for me, I saw in Open International, it opens the eyes of everybody on these issues. And then if everybody starts speaking on those levels, I'll tell you, the few guys who try to profiteer by these means will no longer get the support to continue doing it. And with the necessary government interventions wherever required, it would ultimately come to an end.
That's true. I mean, when the voice becomes bigger and bigger, and then like these perpetuators, like they tend to like become low from their point.
But look at it. See, Harold was not somebody who came without education or labor.
Yeah.
He was a legal guy. He was a little.
Exactly.
If somebody of his caliber can get trapped, what about a normal guy? What about somebody coming from a third world country like Africa? They would be easily, trapped into such, agents, and for the rest of the life, they will work as laborers.
That's true. Definitely true.
It cannot happen. It just cannot happen.
Okay, so as an advisory board member of Eyes Open International, like do you have any plans as such right now, or like what would be like your focus on?
See, basically, from my perspective, the value that I can get is provide a technology platform to globalize whatever we are doing, rather than localize it.
Yes.
Any issue that we take today, digital marketing is a major aspect of it.
True.
Even today, whatever you are doing, if you have to reach to the world, then you need to ensure that you are very good on your Google search, you're good on interacting with Facebook. Although the front end may be StreamYard, but the people can see it on Google, they can
Yeah.
see it on Facebook,
All
Instagram.
social media. Yeah.
Exactly. And if we can get these sort of connectivities provided for the various awareness topics that we do and the various reaches that we can provide through IC Open International, then probably I have done a little bit of my expertise into this organization.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yes, we need that. Yeah, because Harold like keeps saying that like I know what to do, but I don't know like where to exactly go and reach people and where to reach. That's where the ecosystem has to be built across for bringing out these trafficking items onto the world. So for that, we need people like you. Like, and I think it's a right choice he has made, and you're going to do good for this Eyes Open International. I'm sure about that. So, yeah.
We are in a virtual world. So the
Yeah.
world, earlier the debate was whether the virtual world is round or the world is flat.
Yeah.
Today it doesn't matter.
Yes.
All you need is internet.
True.
So today I am in Dubai. You are in the US. And the audience could be anywhere in the world. The impact
Definitely.
is global. And if we don't use those opportunities, then I don't think we are really doing justice to all the initiatives that we take.
Correct. Yes, correct. So for aspiring entrepreneurs, the upcoming buddies, like for them, like what would you want to discuss to them? Like directly you can talk to them now saying that like, see, I have done these things and I'm here. And if you want to share your experience as an entrepreneur and any advice for them, like what they have to be like looking forward.
Yeah. Generally, I speak to entrepreneurs on a very regular basis. So, right, whether it's at the college level or somebody who has done a startup. So, and generally, I've seen that the reservations in an entrepreneur are multifold. But the common ones that come to my mind are will I succeed? Because the success rate of entrepreneurship is very low. It's in single digits. And what would happen if I spend 3-4 years and then I fail? How will I face the world? And I basically give them a very simple example, saying that it's not that all students when they went to college or school passed all the exams in one attempt. Okay, so sometimes in life you may have to require more than one attempt. But what you learned in the first exam helps you do it faster and pass in the second exam. Similarly, in entrepreneurship,
Mr. Ivan, like I think your voice got cut, like you're mute, I think. I'm sorry.
oh, sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So you cannot go half-hearted approach at all. You need to give it your all, and have to be very clear on what and why you want to get into a particular area to solve. Because entrepreneurship is all about solving specific problems, and once you don't look back, you will have a lot of pitfalls to fall. Every day is a challenge. You will be pulling hairs, but don't be, and you'll be dragged by a lot of friends, family, everybody. Just go and hit. And after all that you fail, you have learned a lot. You have a lot of experience that will help you in your next venture. And to succeed, you only need to succeed once. You can fail 10 times. And one success will override all the other failures that you have done. Today, you look at role models, you can take big or small, you can look at the Apple story, the Microsoft story, or even a smallest one. In most of the cases, they would have had failures in life. But none of those failures are highlighted. Only the successes are highlighted.
True.
So never give up until you also come into the same pedestal, and make that happen. The second mistake that entrepreneurs do is they think success is relative to money, how much money I make.
Yeah.
Success has nothing to do with money.
Okay.
Success is basically when you have achieved your original objectives, and never put money as the fundamental objective that you want to become rich, you want to be a billionaire. That is why you want to be an entrepreneur. You will never be able to succeed. You look at a problem, you solve that problem, and you do it better than anybody else in this world. You are successful. And obviously, the byproduct of the success is also money. Because when you are successful, then obviously there'll be investors after you. There'll be somebody to acquire you. Somebody will see value in you. That is basically nothing but a reward for your success. It's not the success.
Okay. That's true. So objective for what you want to become must be very clear, and we have to work towards that objective. And then I think we will enjoy all the byproducts of that, like whatever comes with it.
Secondly, don't do something because somebody else has done it.
Yeah, this is definitely a good point. Because today we see like we have a lot of exposure today, and people start looking up each other and they want to try what the other person is doing, but not knowing really like whether we wanted to really go behind that or not. So
lot of when they see somebody else successful and they think they also can do the same thing. It's like in the old way, one tea stall was selling and doing good business. So you want to open a tea stall opposite on the other side of the road. This has no relevance in entrepreneurship. You have to be unique in what you think and how you want to execute it. And you can never think that everybody else has done everything, so nothing is left for you. Then you are not an entrepreneur.
That's true.
So disruption has its own methods. You look at it, what you can disrupt based on the qualities that you have, based on the expertise that you have, and based on the problems that you yourself face on a daily basis. Yeah, when you experience problems, you know how to get to solutions.
That's true. That's true. So I think we are nearing to the end of a discussion. Like I just want to ask you this one last question. Like, what or for whom you are really thankful for in this due course of your journey? Like,
obviously, I have to thank my own parents, my families, my wife, my children. Without them, you will never be able to do anything. Correct? Because if they don't cooperate with you, if they don't, allow you to continue your passion, there is no way you can do anything, irrespective of how bright or brilliant or whatever ideas you have. But then you should also be thankful. For me, obviously, God has been very kind to me. So, I could have had all the things done and they could have all gone wrong, irrespective of how well I planned it, if He had not blessed me. So we need to have that faith. We need to believe that, the Almighty needs to bless and guide you in everything that you do. And He needs to provide you with the ecosystem that is required to be successful. So you need to have good friends, good investors, good partners, good clients. So it's not one or two. It's a combination of everything. And with the way I look at it is, if I look at it from an upright perspective, and I don't have any devious things in mind, then everybody else will also come to you with the same intent. And then nothing can stop.
Okay, that's nice of you to tell that, because like I want you to tell people that like it's not about entrepreneurship. It's not about like one single person. The ecosystem has to be there, and more than that, the word hope has to be there for them. And I just want you to discuss about that. That's why like I asked that question to you now.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that was an insightful talk, and I'm so happy that I was able to talk to you in person with all these minute details, like where we actually get in a workshop or somewhere. It's like more of a workshop today. And I think I'm so happy that people get to hear about the side of you.
My pleasure, Preeti. And I should thank Harold because, when he called me, I did not know what it was. But I said, if that could be of use to somebody else, I'm always available because, ultimately, we only have one journey in this life, and if that can help somebody else do something better, then why not?
Yes, definitely this would have been a helpful talk to many people here out there, not only for entrepreneurs but also for an individual. This is a big thing like which you are talking about today. So thank you so much for being on my show today, and thanks for being here with.
Thank you very much, and all the best to you guys.
Thank you so much. And yeah, so audience, we are winding up with Mr. Ivan Fernandes for today, and this will be our last discussion with the advisory board members of EOI, and we'll all see you in another show. Thank you for being with us.